All right. Well, Laura, thanks for joining me on the podcast. It was funny. I didn't even realize you were going to be on the In Goal podcast the week we're recording here. So I was working today listening to that. It's like, wait a minute, we're going to be talking
Hold
later
on.
today.
I'll talk to her later.
Yeah.
I'm doing the rounds. I was gonna say I've done a couple today too.
I was going to say it's probably a busy time for you to be talking to a bunch of folks, spreading the good word about October Saves. And we're obviously going to talk about that. But before we do, I got to ask, how did you get exposed or started with the game of hockey? I know you've got the two goalies in the family. Was that the start of it, or was there a passion for the game before then?
No, so my husband and I had absolutely zero experience in ice hockey, like zero. So I'm from Maryland, my husband's from Virginia, but he's a football player. I mean, we had zero experience. But my oldest child, his best friend, that child's dad was from Boston. So
Okay.
that child was playing hockey. And so of course my son was like, well, I've got to go play the sport, that my best buddy is playing. And my husband and I were like, sure, okay, we know nothing about
Yeah.
this. So
Didn't know what you were setting yourselves up for, right?
nothing. And we certainly did not know about goaltending. I'll tell you that much. We knew nothing.
Yeah. So when the first one came home and it was like, hey, I want to be a goalie, you didn't think anything of it. You were just like, sure, go on. Why not?
Was especially the first child. And honestly, the first child, we knew that he was going to be a goalie because he would record on his own since he was little. He would record NHL on the fly. And every morning we would find him in the family room just rewinding the parts with the goalies. And so we were like, okay, this child, like it's in the DNA, this child is a goalie. And
Yes.
then when the second child was like, okay, I'd like to put on the pads, my husband and I were like, oh no, like really, we're gonna do this
Yeah.
twice.
Yeah.
But you
Who's getting the second job for that one?
you can't say yes to one and no to another. So we were like, sure, you're not gonna like it. Like we didn't think he was gonna like it. And no, he definitely liked it. So two goalies.
Yeah, it was funny. When I was playing, my dad would always say, why couldn't you have stuck with soccer? I would have bought you top of the line cleats every year, brand new, and
You're
it
right.
wouldn't have been a big deal. But no, you had to go play hockey, and on top of that, you had to be a goalie. It's like, well, but
It's just I don't know, it's something about it, and they love it, and the first time that our oldest put on the pads, like, it was, a set of gear that was owned by the team, so it was like, this
yeah,
old kinda old gear, but he was small, so it was fine. So they sent us into the locker room like, "Okay, get him dressed," and so we do nothing, and we get him dressed, like, we think we've got him dressed, and we send him out, and then the coach, like, whispers in our ear, he's like, "You've got the leg pads on the wrong legs." And we were like,
yep,
"Be right back," and then we'll go put those back on. So we've come a long way. It's been, it's over a decade now, but yeah.
yeah. I remember when I first started. Again, I was using association pads too, but this was in the early '90s, and they still had equipment from the late '70s
My
for
gosh.
association equipment. So, like when you see the old photos of brown leather pads, that's what I was
That's
wearing. And my dad, he's putting them on, not knowing which leg they should go on, so they were on the wrong leg. But those pads, it didn't really matter because it's not like there was an outer roll, but it was like,
right. They were so wonky anyway that whatever, you just get them on.
yeah, but I kind of appreciate that I got to, you know, at least play 1 year with the old school
Yes.
equipment. My chest protector was a two-piece chest
Oh,
protector.
wow.
I looked like a goalie from the '70s with the exception of my helmet. I had a player helmet that I was
A
wearing, but
player
it's like,
helmet.
you know, I I, I have a lot more respect for those older goalies and what
Yes.
they had to
Yes, and
go
what they
through.
actually what they actually wore and were happy to be wearing, right.
Yeah. I had one teammate ask me, what would you do if goalies didn't wear masks? And I just looked at him. It's like, I'd be a forward. Like, I may be a goalie, but I'm not stupid.
Right, there's not a chance I would put one of my children out there, not in full gear from top to bottom. There's not a chance.
No, no. And I had to have braces as a kid, and my mom would joke, and she's like, I'm not worried about the investment because he's a goalie. I know he'll at
Yes,
least keep most of his teeth.
yes. That's what our orthodontist said, like, "Okay, well, don't worry because you are protected, so you're gonna be
Yes.
fine. You're the only one that's not gonna lose his teeth." So I was like,
Yeah.
"Okay, there's positives to this, like, I can do this." You know,
Yeah.
balance out the stress level that I experience every single game, sure.
yeah. So the kids start playing hockey, they become goalies, and it is a whole different culture for sure, especially
Mhm.
for your husband coming from football. It's a
Mhm.
very different culture. What has it been like the last 10 years, really, becoming a part of it and, uh, learning the game on top of it? Because it's not like the rules are easy to figure out at first either.
No, and when we were just newbies, I mean, complete newbies when we came to this, but the hockey community is also a very, like they embrace you when and
Yep.
so the minute we sort of found ourselves in a rink and this is what we were doing, I mean, we were really, I would say we were all in from the beginning because it was just really fun and the game was so fast and after a little league baseball, sorry folks, but um ice hockey was pretty awesome and you kind of can't go back after that point. Like you can't go back to some of those other like little league sports after you've had your child playing hockey. So I don't know, we just fell in love with it too, and we learned quickly. And my husband's kind of an all around sports guy, thank goodness, and he embraced all of the different things he needed to learn. And then I sort of took on the role like my job is the one to keep everybody sane. Like I'm the one that's like I should have a psychology degree at this point from bringing the children off the ice and making sure everyone's okay and mentally
Yep.
either you're the hero or the zero. So we had to make sure everybody's okay. But we've been doing it for a long time at this point with two goalies, and it's all we know. I mean, we don't have a forward, we don't have a defenseman like that. We have goalies. So I don't know what's
Yeah.
genetics, but something.
Well, you mentioned, it's compared to Little League Baseball. My son's a baseball player, and I enjoy the game watching him play for different reasons. But my grandpa was a Dutch immigrant. Didn't really understand the game of hockey, but he loved coming to my games because he said, when he would go to games, he's like, only two people are playing at a time. He goes, at least when I come to your games, everybody's involved. And he's like, the only reason somebody's sitting down is because they're tired.
Right.
You know,
Right.
but
And
he,
only
he
for a short
just
period
he
of
didn't
time. Right.
understand.
Right.
Yeah, but he even said, I really don't understand what's going on, but it's still fun to watch.
Well, we joke that my mother-in-law, who has become the best hockey grandma, like she is so into it. But we still joke to this day that every time there's a delayed penalty and the goalie starts like racing off the ice, still to this day, like more than 10 years in, she's like, where is he going? Why, like, where's the goalie going? Why is, and we're like, oh my gosh, we've explained this so many times.
Yeah,
But she still loves it. I mean, she's never going to understand all of it, but she loves it and she's into it. So it's
yeah.
great.
Well, I remember my brother-in-law. He played high school hockey in Minnesota and junior hockey and some college hockey. So my sister-in-law, um, she grew up in a hockey household. She should know
Mhm.
some of these rules. And we're at one of my nephew's games, and my brother-in-law was there with me, and my father-in-law was there, and my nephew's team was down late in the game, so they're pulling the goalie, and my sister-in-law is just clueless. Not, she's like, this coach doesn't know what he's doing. Why is he pulling the goalie? Blah blah blah. And we kind of look over at her and we're like, because you're down one goal with a minute and a half left in the game. That's
Right.
what you do. And she was like, okay, well, but it was like all three of us were just like, how long have you been around this game and you're
Yeah,
asking this
all of a
question?
sudden you're an expert. Hold on. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
something about sitting in those stands, I don't know, it brings things out in people. I mean, my mom was the sweetest, calmest human being on the planet, but you put her in the stands in a hockey game and for like young kids games, and next thing you know, she is yelling like I've never seen her yell. So there's just something about an ice rink
Oh
with
yeah.
like a game going on that just brings out all this different stuff in people. But I think that's partially why we love it. So
One of my teammates in youth hockey, his dad was a referee. So his mom knew the rule book.
yeah.
And none of the other moms would sit by Mrs. Hutchinson because game would be going and she'd just be to the person next to her hitting her arm. So my mom always sat next to Mrs. Hutchinson because she wanted to know the rules.
Right. She
And
learned a
she's
lot
like,
sitting next to Mrs. Hutchinson. Right.
yeah, but she's like, I always had a bruise on my arm during the season, and it was just the. So yeah, it was kind of one of those things when I was reading my mom's eulogy, I had to bring that one up
Yes.
because Mrs. Hutchinson was there, and she's just like, oh Jesus,
It's like, I just
yeah,
got brought up in a eulogy. Like, oh my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah. It was like, oh my god. Um,
That's awesome.
so you got the two goalies in the household, which my deepest sympathies to
I
you
know. I've
because
heard that
we
many times.
as you said, the first one you knew he was born that way, and goalies are born. There was a great cartoon
Mhm.
back when I was playing youth hockey, and um, it was basically that goalies are hatched, not born, and
That's
we're
true.
that way from birth.
Yes.
Um, but you got these two kids playing hockey, um, and you somewhere around that time you get diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mhm.
Um, that's not easy for any family, especially a mother. What was that like for the family, and how did the hockey community step up for you?
So I was diagnosed, I mean, as is everyone who's diagnosed, but completely out of the blue, was healthy as can be as far as I was concerned, in great shape, happy as can be. My kids were 4 and 7, so they were just starting hockey. So, um, it was just a completely just devastating, but just shocking situation. So,
Hmm.
and we went through a fairly, aggressive battle for a while with lots of surgeries and chemo and the whole 9 yards. And um, the hockey world for us was kind of going on parallel to what was going on at home with all this chemo and cancer and kind of mayhem. But our boys would go to the rink, and the rink was just their happy place. It was awesome.
Hmm.
It was where they could just be free and or get out anger or, whatever was kind of going on, just forget it. They would just go into this other world. But then, as a hockey, when you're on a hockey team, you practice all the time. You have games all weekend. So
Yep.
the hockey team is also your hockey family, and the rink is where you know everyone, and it's just a very strong community. So for us, they were really there when I had cancer. Like our hockey team and our hockey world was super super supportive. And so once I finished, once the battle was kind of finished, or at least the treatment part was finished, then we thought, okay, let's use this community. Like maybe let's give back with this community. He was so
Yep.
supportive. Like let's see if we can maybe do like a little fundraiser. Let's just do a little fundraiser. And let's just go with what you know. And we know goalies. So, we had a little conversation with our goalie coach in the lobby of the rink. And, this idea was hatched. And so we ran with it. And we thought it would be like maybe we could raise $5,000. That would be awesome. And we'd give it to Stand Up to
Yep.
Cancer. And that would be super cool during Breast Cancer Awareness Month. But 28 goalies signed up, and we thought, we'd have a few. 28 goalies signed up, and then we raised $32,000, which, far exceeded what we thought we could ever do. And so it got us just thinking, like, hold on a second. I think we've struck a nerve. Like somehow we have just found this community that's going to embrace doing this event, this October Saves event. And then it just sort of exploded from there.
Yeah. Well, and it warms my heart that the hockey community stepped up when they did for you, because it's not easy on the kids, especially even
Mhm.
at that age. They really don't understand what's going on, but they know something's not right. And like
Mhm.
you said, going to the rink, it was an escape for not just them, probably, you guys
All of
too,
us.
when you went there.
Mhm.
Because yeah, people are going to ask how you're doing, but after that, it's like, all right, here's your hot cocoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's
It
stay warm and watch the kids.
it was normal and
Um,
fine. Yeah, like they would just, "What do you need? Can we help you with this?" Just a really, they see
yeah,
you every day. So pretty
yeah,
much, there's only a few days you're not at the rink. And so
yeah,
they see you every day, and just was just a really supportive,
yeah,
wonderful community.
and probably helped with the kids and took that burden
Mhm.
off of
Mhm.
worrying about them too, because um, yeah, that's how it is.
Mhm.
Um, so you start this initiative with the idea to somehow give back to cancer research, and I think I read somewhere too, some of the groups you've given to also focus on the patient care, because as you know, it's not easy. My
Mm-mm.
wife was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in
Oh, wow.
August of 2001,
Okay.
and right after giving birth to my daughter, she had to go through treatment. And
Oh.
she was like, just the you know depending on where you're at, they just kind of put you in a room. It's like, here you go. And it's like, there's certain things that would be nice to have, like a blanket or,
Sure.
different things. It's like you don't know until you're in that
You don't
environment.
know.
And,
Nope.
so there are groups now that kind of help not give you a welcome basket, but kind of
They
like
do
a,
actually. Yes, they
yeah,
do. There are groups that do. I mean, you're almost like, "Welcome to the sorority." Like, it's like,
yeah.
but it's all the nice things. One of the groups that we donate to, and we have from the beginning, and we're really proud of, is a beneficiary. They're called Life with Cancer. And,
Mm.
They all the treatment that they give, it's sort of therapeutic support services basically for people going through treatment of any
Yep.
types of cancer, and it's free for anyone who wants to go. So I mean, you could be treated at the hospital right next door, or you could be treated somewhere else, but it's free to go there. And they have everything from like from psychologists to helping you figure out how to wear a wig to drum circles if that's what you need to I mean, you
Yeah.
name it, they've got it for the full family, like
Yeah.
everyone. So the kids, if the kid, if mom and dad are experiencing the diagnosis, whatever. But we're very proud to support them, and the things that they do are just so important.
Yeah, I love that that group focuses on the whole family
Mhm.
because the cancer patient can't get well if their caretakers aren't well.
Right.
And I know when my wife was going through treatment, I had to have somebody I could talk to, and at the
Mhm.
different times there were different people I could. When my mom was diagnosed in 2020, like that was one of the first things I told my dad is like, I'm here to talk, but I know you got people out where they live as well. It's like it's important.
Yes.
You're taking on a lot, but my wife was great with my mom, and that it was like as soon as we found out, it was like Amazon was coming every day. Just
Oh.
different things. So I was like, "What's this?" And my wife's like, "You're gonna want that when you go." Like she sent her
Oh.
these like these mint suckers or something. She's like,
Yes.
I don't like mint, and she's like, "Trust me, bring them
Just
with."
trust
And
me. Take
by the time mom was done with chemo, she's like, "I love mint suckers."
Yes.
Like they
Yes.
sit on my
What
stomach.
it's all
Uh,
that little secret, secret stuff that people know that have been through the experience. Because even your
yeah,
doctor hasn't been through, most likely,
right.
not been through the same experience. So, early on, I was also I was a survivor offering support, like mentor and SOS, because basically they assign you someone who's going through what you just finished because that's so important. They learn just as much from you as they learn from their doctor because there's just tricks, things to wear to chemo, things that you can eat, things
Yep.
that might be happening that you don't know why they're happening. So
Yeah.
there's the support system is very, very critical.
Yeah. Well, you talk about the things to wear. I knew compression socks were a good thing. And there's a guy I played high school hockey with that makes these socks, toe drag apparel, that look like hockey socks with skates on them. And
That's awesome.
he had pink ones out for a while for breast cancer awareness. And
Mhm.
so, I've got several of the pairs. I got the Blackhawks pair, the USA hockey,
Awesome.
but when mom was diagnosed, it's like, well, I want to get her a pair of these, she can wear them on chemo day.
Yeah.
But they weren't on his website. So I sent him an email and he's like, what's your mom's address? And they sent it to him. He said, what do I owe you? He goes, don't worry about it. So he sends her two of these pair and she
Oh,
loved them because they went almost all the way up to the knee
yes.
and they were a good compression. And she's like,
Yes.
they were the socks I wore every week. And of
Every
course, as she's
time.
wearing them, she's looking down at at her feet, like thinking of me. But it was like,
That's so
okay,
sweet. Like, that's such a
yeah,
sweet thing. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
you helped her spirits along with her physical,
yeah,
condition as well by sending her that, and she thinks of you, and that's also good medicine.
yeah, yeah. So now that she's gone, I wear those socks every time I skate,
Oh, that's awesome.
to think of her. But the other thing we had, I think it was one of the photo services, had a blanket made with all the grandkids'
Mhm.
pictures, and it was like it was just those little things
So
that remind you
that's
those
such a sweet thing. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, but as you know, there's those days where it's just like you don't have much fight in you, and then you see those things. It's like, okay, I don't have much fight, but I got a reason, so I'm going to keep
Right.
going.
So I'm just gonna keep going, and I'm gonna get through this, and it's just a speed bump or whatever, you get through I mean, it's a long battle. Whoever is going through cancer, it's a long process. It's not gonna be
Yeah,
easy no matter what. So, and it's
yeah.
all lifelong. So,
The, the worst part was she was going through her treatment during COVID, so
oh,
she had to
hard.
go into the room all by herself
Yeah,
and everything
that's
else. And
hard.
my dad wasn't just going to drop her off and go home, even though it was like 20 minutes from the house. So
Oh.
he would show up, he'd drop her off, and then he'd go into the parking lot, pull out his lawn chair and his book, and he would sit there and read.
He would
Well,
tailgate by himself out there. Oh.
no, he didn't tailgate by himself because when they live on a coastal island in North Carolina. So when the friends on the island found out, all of
Oh.
those that weren't working, they would come and
Oh,
tailgate with dad.
that is so nice. That is so
Yeah,
sweet.
and it was like, and
That's
they
lovely.
tailgated as if it was a football game, but they
Oh,
were they were
awesome.
there.
I love that though. That's so like
Yeah,
See, there's his support system. There's his,
Yeah.
like, what a wonderful group of
Well,
people.
yeah, it was his system, but mom could also look out the window and see
Oh,
all of them and wave to
yeah.
them, so it was kind of like,
Aw.
nobody could be in there with her, but, it was just that reminder that even though she was physically alone, she wasn't alone.
She wasn't.
Uh,
Right, she was, but that's a beautiful story. That's such
yeah,
a fantastic thing, and just great friends, like what dear friends will do for you in, like, your moment of need. That's so fantastic.
yeah. So let's get back to the October saves. Like you said, you started about 9 years ago.
Mhm.
Each year it gets bigger and bigger. I think it was like 3 or 4 years ago I found out about it. And I always sign up, but nobody ever. I didn't really push it much because I'm like, I'm just a beer league goalie.
We love the beer league
Right.
goalies. It's
But
great.
it's like, who's going to donate money to a beer league goalie to stop pucks? But then on Mother's Day of this year, we did lose mom, and I've had
Mother's
Justin
Day. Oh,
Goldman on the podcast, and
yeah.
to talk about that because he had lost his
That's
mom
his
too,
mom.
so it
Yeah,
was kind of a therapeutic
I bet.
episode for me. But so this year, I just kind of had a reason to push
Mhm.
it. So I have been, and I've
Thank
been
you.
able to raise a little bit of money so far. Hopefully more before the
Well, we
month's
love that.
over.
We appreciate that so
Yeah,
much.
and I know every little bit helps too. So that's the good thing. But the exciting thing is like this year you've got the Washington Capitals have signed on, and it sounds like some of the bigger groups are starting to take notice, and it almost feels like it's close to
Taking off.
becoming something really big.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
and
taking off.
that's got to be super exciting too to know that the impact you've had already, but what's just on the horizon right now could be even better.
Well, I mean, we know that we're honestly still, like, honestly, tip of the iceberg. Like, we know we are. We
Hmm.
know how many. I mean, if we're just looking at the number of youth goalies that are, USA Hockey registered youth goalies, we know,
Hmm.
roughly how many that is, and we're the tip of the iceberg. So the growth potential is fantastic, but the growth that has happened already with a pandemic smack in the middle has been pretty striking, and that's the thing that's that we love. It's been so organic. Like, the first year was the Ashburn Extreme in Virginia. So, we just did it and we put up a big, pink brick wall, like banner up on the wall. And so other clubs would come in for a tournament, a Columbus Day tournament, and they'd see this and be like, what's that? And I want to do that.
Hmm.
So, word started spreading. And then the second year we challenged the Howard Huskies in Maryland, one of our rival teams. Like, we challenged them to, like, let's compete with this, like, fundraising, right? And so they jumped in, they were awesome, and we raised a ton of money, like even more money that year. And then we had a fantastic commissioner of the CBHL, and she was all in the next year. She's like, we're doing it. Every club's doing it. I'm like, I am pushing this. And she did. She was so great. Debbie Moon. We're so grateful to her. And so, we've had all these sort of little angels along the way that have
Yep.
jumped in and, like, latched onto it and loved the idea and helped us grow and helped us grow. And, Justin Goldman of the Goalie Guild was critical. I mean, the minute he jumped on, that sort of, like, dropped all barriers, especially between, the US and Canada, and
Yep.
brought so many new people in and exposed us to all kinds of new organizations. And then, we've almost just, like, sort of watched ourselves grow, like, up the East Coast, like towards the Midwest. Like, we just watched different groups pop in. And now we have had goalies in, like, 46 of 50 states and 9 of 10 provinces. So that's pretty cool. Um,
Yeah.
and, Darcy Kemper and Charlie Lindgren of the Washington Capitals, they are signed up and counting saves. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty crazy. So,
It's easier for them to count saves because they have people that know how to do it doing
yes,
it for them. It's not like us beer
yes,
leaguers who have to either keep track in our head during a game or the
right.
squirt goalie. But having them is so huge because
Mhm.
now other goalies in the NHL are going to take note,
Yeah,
as well as the AHL and the East.
right.
The minor leagues. So hopefully these other leagues and teams within the NHL catch on, and it just becomes that they have the Hockey Fights Cancer. I think during November,
November. Yeah,
because you know why isn't this just the big push in October?
right.
Each team could almost have a battle against their rival, who
Right.
can raise more for their
We
goalies.
love
And
that. The interesting thing is, so we finish, we finish counting saves October 31st, and then we have, like, this
yeah,
little period of time where we collect money, and then we announce the winners November 11th. So the cool thing is that that's right in the middle of Hockey Fights Cancer Month. And
yeah,
so there's a couple different clubs that have our kids come and like sort of participate in their Hockey Fights Cancer Night, which is great. So New Jersey Devils are fantastic. They have invited our kids down and had done big check ceremonies and good stuff. And the Washington Capitals are, of course, excellent to work with. And so we're getting some traction there. And what we've started doing, we've had this program where we do, if a state raises over $50,000, so like the goalies of New Jersey right
Yeah.
now raised over $50,000. So we're going to do $5,000 towards a local charity within that state. And
And
if they
that's
were
awesome.
over 100,000, then we'll do 10,000, and so on. But the cool thing is we've managed to sort of match that up with some of the Hockey Fights Cancer Nights, because that's a great opportunity to bring the kids to give a big check to this also great cancer beneficiary.
Yeah.
And so we've done that, and that's becoming a really interesting relationship that we're starting to form with more and more NHL teams. And it's just great because we get to bring all the parties together in one place for one event and get the word out and help a great
Yeah.
beneficiary.
Well, and like, I'm just sitting here thinking, as I'm in Minnesota, it's like, why haven't the college teams hopped on yet? Why haven't some of these junior teams in Canada hopped
We
on? It's
always
like,
get a few here and there, but not a lot of those. It's funny. Like our sweet spot is squirts.
yeah,
Squirts are in. Like they love it. Their moms are all about it. Like they're all about it. But then we always do get a few college goalies that for some there's like a reason. There's a grandmom or there's a
yeah,
somebody that they're fighting for. And so we always get a few here and there, and we get some junior teams here and there that sort of participate. So it's just an organic growth. As we keep going, we're going to get more and more of them. And we love when the big boys join, because the younger kids love to participate with like their idol or like the big guys, they
yeah,
love it. So it's definitely a cool thing to feel like you're, doing this together with your idol. So like
yeah.
Jeremy Swayman's done some messages for us, and he does like the best, most like enthusiastic, encouraging messages. And we love it because everyone's like, okay, whatever Jeremy Swayman says, we're doing it too. Like it's just his messages are so good.
Well, that's what I love about the goalie community is, you talk about hockey being tight knit, but then you throw the goalies in there, and because we are kind of on this island by ourselves, there's only
Mhm.
usually one other person on the team that can sympathize with us.
Yes.
We band together. Even
Mhm.
like even the goalies in high school that played for my arch rival, I still knew them outside of the rink. It was like
Yes.
we still banded together because we were the goalies, even if we didn't
Yes.
like each other's teams. So it's like they're coming
That's actually
together and
it's
competing.
one of the other big like tenets of why we did this. So yes, we're fighting cancer and that's our purpose and that's what we're doing. But we also wanted to, shine a light on the goaltenders. Like you're kind of this island back there. Again, like you said,
Yep.
you have a partner maybe, but otherwise you're under a lot of pressure. And we recognize that a lot of people don't even realize how strong of athletes these kids are. These kids,
Mhm.
adults, whoever, like they're strong athletes back there and they're working hard in a very different way. And it's very mental and physical and all of this stuff. So we wanted to shine a light on them. And so the month of October, we find that, these, when they participate in October saves, people are paying attention to them. Like people are
Mhm.
counting their saves. And we kind of joke, we had this one team that every time there was a save during October saves, all the parents in the stands would yell, that's a save, so it's like every save was magnified.
Yeah.
But you really start paying attention. Like my goalie's working his buns off back there. Like now we realize that kid just made 35 saves, 25 saves, whatever. So goalies, they get a light shown on them. And then they're also showing themselves to be leaders in the community and like sort of
Yeah.
rallying people. And we had this beautiful story that happened, several years ago, but we had some goalies, all participating, and on social media, they were sharing stories. And one of the Ashburn Extreme goalies, the family saw a story of another goalie, a Massachusetts goalie who had just lost his aunt. And it was very emotional and very upsetting. He was very close to his aunt. And so they recognized each other and realized that Ashburn Extreme goalie realized that they were going to be playing each other in this Columbus Day tournament. And so they played each other and the game was over. And then the Ashburn team skated over and gave a gift to that
Oh,
goalie.
geez.
And I mean, there wasn't a dry eye. Like, I mean, it was like, "Whoa," I mean, it was so emotional, but for that Massachusetts goalie to be supported by
Yeah,
the rival, like the kid on the other side of the ice and like have that moment, it was just really a beautiful moment that happened, because of organically because of October saves, and they saw each
yeah,
other and realized that there was another reason why they were actually together on
yep,
something.
yeah.
So it was pretty beautiful.
Well, and, you had said, the fans recognizing the saves. The other side of it too is it's October. It's the start of the season for a lot of
Mhm.
goalies.
Yes.
So making each save a little more important than just getting off
Mhm.
to a good start throws a
Yes.
little more, and it almost makes it better for the goalie. Not necessarily extra pressure, but more of a reward to make
Yeah,
those
you're just a
saves.
little more, like, oomph in there. I don't know, and we
Yeah,
we joke, but it's true because we've seen it happen, that these goalies get more shutouts in October because every save is counting and people are watching, like, they know people are watching what they're doing and watching what's happening with them. So, I mean, we had one goalie, and this was amazing. It was actually the goalie that was a partner of my youngest son, who had this just amazing big donor, and the big donor was like, "Okay, you get 4 shutouts in October, and I will donate $20,000
oh wow.
to you," and he got 3, but it was but he still got the guy donated $10,000. It was amazing, but so we were thrilled, but I
Yeah,
mean, that kid got 3 shutouts in October, and that's splitting games. I mean, so he
yeah.
was, like, he was going for it. So it's just a little extra something to put a fire in the belly. So, it's a good thing when
Well,
your goalie's doing
I
it.
know in my game this week it was a rough game. I'll say
Oh, I'm
that, but
sorry.
I saw 50 shots, and I was
That's a
like,
lot.
okay,
Yeah,
I stopped 40 of them, and I felt good because it's like, all
okay.
right, there's 40,
That's
you know,
40 saves, 40 play right, it's
yeah.
like that's a lot.
Yeah, but it was funny because I sent that to my dad. I was like, "Hey, made 40 saves last night." He's like, "All right, not bad." I said, "I saw 50 shots," and his response was, "So you sucked last night." I
No,
was like, "Well, I mean, that's his dry humor."
he's
It's like,
kidding, but
yeah, it's like actually I played quite well.
no,
Obviously
dad, I was
comes,
awesome, yeah.
yeah. If you see 50 shots in a beer league game, it
If you see 50
means,
shots in a game,
yeah,
holy cow, I mean,
yeah. I was
that's
like it.
crazy.
Yeah, we weren't going to win that game because
No,
we'll put it
no.
that way. But it was funny. So you sucked last night. He's like, thanks, Dad. I appreciate
Thanks,
that.
dad, I really appreciate that, dad. Gotta have a sense of humor in goaltending,
Yeah.
that's for
So
sure.
you do, you really do, and I think that's one of the things that helped me growing up was that dry sense of self-deprecating humor my family had.
Yes,
It was like,
yes.
well, that didn't go as we wanted.
That wasn't so
Um,
fun, maybe better luck next time, right.
Yeah, yeah. He's like, I still remember I was a big Eddie Belfour fan, and the night he was traded from the Blackhawks, we had a game the next morning, and I started that game, and I was pulled after the first period. And at the
Oh.
year-end banquet, the coach was saying a few things about each player, and he looks over at me and he goes, "Well, if I learned one thing this season, it's not to play Joe after Eddie's been traded because he wears his
Oh.
mourning band over his eyes and not on his sleeve." It was,
Oh, no.
yeah, I was like, "Thanks, coach," and
Thanks. I was upset. Thank you. I
yeah.
was.
Well,
Oh.
and he knew that because he's also a psychologist, so he was
Oh,
playing that side of it. Yeah,
okay.
yeah. No, he's all these years later, 20+ years later, still a good friend of the family.
Oh, that's
He lived
awesome.
right down the block from us. So it was back in the day when a coach could pick a player up
Yes,
for
drive you to the rink.
practice and games in high school. And so for 2 years, he took me to almost every single practice.
Oh,
And
so he's a good
so
friend, coach and friend.
yeah, yeah. So it was kind of funny. He was just picking on me because he knew he could.
He
I
knew
was
he
like,
could,
oh, you
and he
got it.
knew that actually you were in mourning that morning. So, yeah, he knew
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. And
You were.
I've been fortunate enough to have Eddie on the podcast, and I told him that when he just started laughing. He's like, "Well, yeah."
Wow, I affected youth goalies across the land when that happens, like
Yeah, yeah, it was funny though. So you had mentioned the ability if a state or a goalie or an organization can raise enough money, they can get some of that money to come back to their state, their
Mhm,
community. And as you were saying on the In Goal podcast, it's not just coming back to their state, but they get to help pick which organization it goes to. And I think that's really cool because I mean, growing up when we did, Susan, all we knew of was Susan G. Coleman. As we've come to
yes,
learn,
yes,
so much of money was raised through that group,
Mhm.
but so much of that money didn't go back to actual cancer research. So I like that it's not just a, well, this is where it's going. The goalie or, the group kind of gets a say in where it's going to go and have that impact that is important to them. But you also mentioned, each group will be vetted, so that it's actually being used and not just going
Mhm.
towards administrative fees.
Yeah, so we take that very, very seriously. So we are an all volunteer organization. October Saves,
Hmm.
we're all volunteer. And so we like it's a huge goal for us to give away as much of the money to the beneficiaries as we can. So we run at like a 7% operating cost. That is so low for a charity.
Hmm.
Usually like 25% and you're doing great. So we're
Yeah.
7%. So, the fact that we're able to leverage technology, which it's free for everyone to use, and we don't have like sort of event costs like banquet
Yeah.
halls, things like that. So that, and we're again all volunteer, so that way we can we give the money to the research facilities, to the cancer research folks, the doctors, those people. But it's really important for us to vet where we give that money. And so we visit, we do regular meetings with them. We sort of scrub through all of the documents and find out who are the best people.
Hmm.
That means a lot. We visit the drug research labs. We visit, pandemic obviously put a little bit of a damper on that, but now we do Zoom calls with the particular researchers. I mean, that is very important to us. Like there's not a dollar to be wasted in cancer fighting as far as we're concerned. So
Right.
we make sure that money is going to a really, really effective place that's going to take that money and do something great with it. So,
Yeah.
and then we also like to have, like, we like to hear from people, like what inspires you, if there is a place that means something to you, we've given in Pennsylvania last year, we were able to, the $5,000 donation went to an awesome facility that actually had helped one of our goalies. Like
Oh,
he had
cool.
leukemia. Actually his name is Dan Mooney. And if you go look him up on our page and read his story, it's so inspiring. This kid is so inspiring and he's just giving back right now. Like he had leukemia and, fought it and then decided he wanted to be a goalie and he just had to, learn to walk, learn to skate, learn to play and fight his way through it. And now he's a varsity goalie and it's just, it's just like the best story ever. But
That's
we're
awesome.
able to give to, a pediatric hospital that he went to that's actually very big in that area, in the Pittsburgh
Hmm.
area. So, we love to hear what inspires folks. And then again, we have to take that information and vet it and find the best place to give the money. But, I'm not in, these states myself personally, and we do a lot of research, but we love to hear, personal stories.
Yeah. No, and that makes it harder for people not to
Mhm.
donate what they can once they hear the stories.
It's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible. And if you look at, I mean, all of the goalies and their profiles, if you go onto our website and then go click and look at some of the goalies, I mean, their stories are unbelievable. And they're not, I mean, yes, we offer prizes. We offer
Yeah.
some awesome prizes, fundraising prizes, but that is not why these kids are doing it. I mean, it truly
Right.
is not why they're doing it. I mean, they're doing it for their nana and for the kid in their class that got cancer, or their dad or whoever. And
Yeah.
a lot of these kids have multiple people that they're participating in honor of. So it's inspiring. We joke that at the beginning of the year, like we spend the other organizers with me, like we spend every day, like we cry at some point every day because we some like super fantastic story. We're like, oh, it's so amazing. Like,
Yeah.
we spend every day crying, at least part of the day in a sweet way. So there's just an inspiring bunch of human beings that are participating in October Saves. They're really good people.
Yeah. And you mentioned the prizes, and for the goalies, that's not the motivating factor. And in fact, I've looked at some of them. I was like, well, if I were to win that, like I got decent equipment. I don't need pads. If I were to so it'd be like, who could I pay it forward to? But I got to imagine, some of the prizes are coming from companies that are seeing this and they're like, how can we help? I know in goal, obviously
Mhm.
one of them. How can we help? So it's like, you talk about that 7%, you know, going to operating costs. Not much of that is probably going to prizes either, because
No,
people
and
are behind this movement.
we've got some really great, we get some great prizes, and then we get some great discounts and some, different, all kinds of different things. I mean, people, when we reach out, they tend to respond, which is really, really wonderful. So,
Yeah,
it's we like the sort of like smaller prizes that every kid can earn as, or every participant can earn as they raise money. Those are things just sort of like badges of honor, like, okay, awesome. Like I got a
yeah,
baseball bat, I hit this, or, everybody really fights for this pink jersey, which if you hit the $2,000 level, because that's a fun thing to wear. And
yep,
that's a special thing to say. You have raised $2,000 yourself to fight cancer. You wear that on the ice. You wear it next year during, Breast Cancer Awareness Month, whatever. Like, we want you to feel proud when you wear that. But yeah, we get some great folks joining in. In Goal Magazine has been so fantastic. I mean, they're sponsoring our Top 10 Tuesday, which is always like a favorite day where people love to see the top 10. So
yep,
they're doing some super cool prizes that, like, signed Carey Price jersey and Connor Hellebuck stick from his Vezina Trophy winning season. And so just really
yeah,
awesome things. And then they're doing 50% of each subscription that they get during the month of October is going to October Save. So they're fundraising too, which
yeah,
is like fantastic.
yeah. Those guys are great. I've had David and Kevin on the podcast. I've even had Cam from Source for Sports on. Uh,
Awesome.
Darren's the only one I haven't been able to pin down yet, but they're just,
Will.
we talk about the goalie community, and they're almost, I would call them the deans of the goalie
Yeah,
community,
yeah, yeah.
because there's no goalie too big or too small that they're not going to take time and help out however they can.
Yeah, well, on the podcast we just did, it was like October Saves, and then the next interview was Jeremy Swayman. Like, we were
Yeah,
like, "Oh my gosh, like
yeah,
that's
perfect timing.
bonkers." And we were like, "That's just nuts." So I like literally made my sons, who are goalies, I'm like, "Okay, listen to Mom's part, and then listen to Jeremy Swayman's part, because you're going to learn some things." Like, it was
Yeah,
just so good. I mean, it was just, they're so nice and so knowledgeable, and they're really such a great resource for
hmm,
goalie parents and goalies up and down the line, all levels, all age groups. I mean, that is such a great resource to just learn and like take in information. In Goal Magazine is sort of like you too. I mean, Tendy Talk, all this stuff. This is such great sources to just absorb really good firsthand information in a position that a lot of the parents weren't in, that position that their kids
no,
decided to play. So they're just trying to find information. So they're both great sources.
yeah. Well, and it's funny because a lot of goalies I know, as their kids started playing hockey, they're like, "No, I don't want you to play goalie." No, so even some of the parents that were goalies, their kids aren't playing.
Right, right. Oh, no, I mean, my second child, we were like, "No, no, 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 like, this no, this is not happening." But then the Washington
Yeah,
Capitals had his little team do the mites on ice, like, the in between periods, that
yeah,
for this one, and he decided he wanted to be the goalie for mites on ice, and he made this crazy save, and they replayed it on the Jumbotron, and then they brought him over for the interview, and there stood my husband and I in the 400 section like, "Oh my gosh, he's having a life moment right now, like, he's gonna be a goalie too. Thank you, Washington Capitals." And sure enough,
yeah,
he is.
yep, yeah. So if you have anybody to blame, you can blame the Washington
Yeah, I'm
Capitals
like,
on that
"Thanks
one.
for letting my kid have that super amazing moment on the ice, because you changed the trajectory of his life."
Yeah, and kids, young goalies these days are so fortunate in all of the resources they have to them because
Mhm.
I forget who I was talking to on the podcast, but when I was a kid, I would go to the library and take this book out because it was the only book the library had on gold or on hockey, and like we were required to take a book out every week. So I just continuously took the
Same
same
book.
book out and kept reading it and reading because that was about the only thing, is that or go to
Yeah,
Encyclopedia
yeah,
Britannica.
but that, how cool was that you at least had that one book that you could,
Yeah.
go to?
And, and now, kids have Ingle, they've got Google, they've got YouTube,
Yeah.
they've got things like Sense Arena. There's so many cool,
Oh, yeah, Sense
you
Arena is
know,
awesome. Yes.
I've talked to my dad. I was like, I wonder how much better of a goalie I would have been if I was growing up today
Yeah. Yeah.
versus 20 plus years ago. And he's like, well, hockey is going to be more expensive. Who's to say I would let you play today?
Yeah,
I was
there's a
like,
point to that too.
yeah, I
I'll
was
say
like,
that's
well
for
played,
sure.
Dad. Yeah, good point there. Um,
But there are so many resources and so many cool, like, training, just training options and things that you can do. And people know so much more about the physiology of like the body and how
yeah,
it works in goaltending and how not to overwork it. And you
yeah,
just like, even just sort of the protection of the goalies now, I find so so fantastic because it's, they get sort of beat up in practices and stuff. And now, there's just a lot more knowledge on this position.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yep. Yeah. Well, there's something to be said about feeling the puck and having some of those bruises.
Oh, trust
When I
me.
was coming
Every
up,
time they come home, I'm like, oh, that's your collarbone. I'm like, oh.
yeah, I remember meeting Steve Larmer of the Blackhawks when I was a kid. He was signing autographs at our local rink, and we get up to the front of the line. My teammate's like, "Yeah, this is just our goalie." He's like, "Prove it." So I just like lifted one sleeve, and all the bruises like, "Yeah, you're the goalie."
You're definitely the goalie. Indeed, you're
Yeah,
the goalie.
yeah. It was like, yep. Because back then, I mean, if you didn't have bruises on your upper legs, and it was just like it. I even think now, like goalies wear those knee pads
Yeah.
underneath their hockey pants.
Yes.
I've never worn them because they weren't a
You didn't
thing when
have
I
them.
was a kid. And it's like
Right.
now that I have a new modern pad, it's like there's not a need for these things. Like if I get
Right.
hit there, it's because I was out of position. I deserve it.
Right. Like this is my punishment for not being where I should be. But a puck
Yeah.
always finds its way through.
Oh
That's
God, yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, like how did your rib get like one of my boys I'm like, how did that get to your rib? I don't know, but it did.
Yeah.
Like just,
Well, I've told the story when I was playing college hockey. I got a concussion, and after that, I started wearing a Dominic Hasek style helmet. The
oh
player helmet
yeah.
with no neck protector or anything. It was just this was all open. I wore that thing for a year until my
Mm.
next concussion.
Oh
Then I
no.
went back. Then I went back to a mask, but it had an extended chin, not
Yep.
the dangler, but had an extended chin. Very first practice, in the first 5 minutes, I had a puck come up under the mask, hit me in the neck. It stung, but all I could do was laugh because like
You're
the
like, I
whole
got more protection and they still get
yeah,
under. Yeah.
I skated for a whole year with this completely exposed and nothing.
Nothing. And the minute you have something, it gets under there.
Yeah, I was
Oh,
like that's just how the position works for you.
yes.
So
Yes.
I'm looking at time, and I want to be cognizant of it. I end every episode with a list of 10 questions.
Yes. Okay.
Um, Now, since the questions are typically for goalies, I might have to
Mm.
modify some of them.
Okay. Yes.
But um,
I'll try, but
I've
yes.
asked every guest the same 10 questions, which is the fun part of it.
Okay.
And the first one is, what's the craziest coaching moment from watching your boys play? Where a coach just kind of went berserk.
Oh gosh. I mean, oh god, I feel like there's so many, but, like, I mean, there was one where my son, like, we were just so outmatched, we were playing this team, and so the coach, he pulled one goalie and put in the other one, and then he pulled that goalie, and then he put the other one back, and then he pulled that goalie, and then he put the other one back, and by the time they were crossing each other for the 3rd time, like, they were being I got pulled, but I'm being put back, I'm getting pulled again, like, they were just laughing and passing each other like, "Okay," like,
Yeah.
that was weird, I will say that.
Yeah.
It was like it was such
Coach that
a
wasn't a goalie himself.
no, and the wheels were off the
Yeah.
bus at that point, so it was just but
Yeah.
that happened, like, that actually happened, and everyone was like, "What? They're switching them again? I mean, okay, so it's their fault? Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Just let's get through
Yeah.
this." Mhm.
So the next question is, what's your favorite all-time goalie mask?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm super partial to anything Washington Capitals, and I'm also super partial to anything Braden Holtby.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would just say, any mask of Braden Holtby's would be mine.
He did have some good ones. So one of my all-time favorite um, Washington Capital masks, and even one of my all-time favorite was from the '90s. It was a backup goalie by the name of Rick Teberace, and he had like a American flag battle flag that just went up both sides and was just tattered. It was just such
Oh,
a cool mask,
wow. I will
and
say I'm also very and this is not a professional mask, but my son just had a mask made, like, we just had it designed, and we're from Washington, DC
yeah.
area, so it's got the monuments, like, all the different,
Oh,
like, Washington,
cool.
DC monuments, but, like, it's, like, pencil drawing style,
Yeah.
like, it is beautiful. I mean, it is a piece of art, so
Yeah.
you just reminded me to say that one, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I love about goalie masks is it is art, and
Yes, art, yes, yes,
I was able to convince my high school art teacher that they were art, and that was the only reason
yeah,
I could
they
do a
are.
different goalie mask for every art project.
That's so smart, but they are. I mean, they
Yeah.
absolutely are art. Like, I mean, 100%. One of the prizes we used to let the top goalie design their own helmet and
Mhm.
or their mask design. We gave them a mask and then we let them design it. And the different things they would come up with were so cool and so personal that I
Yeah.
mean, we loved revealing those helmets.
Yeah, it's always fun when even like in high school and college, if any of the goalies would get their mask man, like it wasn't just the goalies were the first ones like
Oh, but then
crowding around, but the
everybody's
whole
like,
team is yeah,
oh, yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I'm telling you, the one my son just had it is beautiful, and it's so, he plays up in Connecticut now, but it's like sort of, his hometown, and it's just got these sort
yeah.
of, beautiful Washington, monuments that anybody would recognize in pencil, like beautifully done on this map.
Yeah,
It's beautiful. Yeah.
that's cool. Um, so the next one is kind of a fun one. What's your favorite rink that you've been to for your boys playing hockey?
You know what? This is crazy to say. I mean, New England Sports Center, it kind of feels like home away from home for
Hmm.
us because we're there all the time and it's big. And I can, this is terrible. I can watch the game well without having to go in and freeze. So
Yeah.
it's a terrible thing to say. And I can still like hear the game and see the game and be right over the game. So I do love New England Sports Center. Um, but I'll tell you what, our Kettler, which is now named MedStar here, back in the Washington, D.C. area, is this super cool rink that this is where my boys used to practice that is on top of a parking garage. Like it's, 7 floors up on top of this
Yep.
parking garage. So you can look over and see in the distance like parts of Washington D.C.
Oh,
And
that's
it's
cool.
all glass at the front and they're beautiful, like beautiful rinks. Like they're also really beautiful. So that's the Washington Capitals. That's also their practice rink for the Washington
Okay.
Capitals. So that rink is, I mean, just a really cool, very different. I have never been to a rink like on top of a, in the middle of like a city on top of a parking deck. So that was
Yeah.
cool too.
Yeah, I know the Wild's new practice rink in downtown St. Paul. It's not on top of a parking garage. It was the old Marshall Fields building
Oh,
that had been sitting vacant for so long, and they
uh-huh.
redeveloped it. But the top floors are now the ice rink.
Isn't that
Um,
cool?
yeah, and I haven't been there yet. I've been wanting to get there. It's been open for a few years, but all the pictures is super cool. Like the Wild's locker room is a floor below the rink, so they have to take an elevator to get up to the
Isn't that
rink. Is
cool?
kind of
Like an
cool.
elevator to the rink, like, that's so, like, just
Yeah,
that's just a wild concept. Well, the other thing is that attached to, MedStar Ice Rink is this new mall that's got, like, the most gourmet everything, so for like, everyone loves it. You can go out, like, beforehand, and you can happy hour before your kid's 6 p.m., Saturday game, like, the whole
yeah.
team, everybody goes in happy hours at some really cool places, and then you come over and watch the game, and it's all the more fun, so
Yeah. Well, the rink I grew up playing at actually had a restaurant bar overlooking the ice.
Yes,
So you'd come
yes,
out for a game and it looks like nobody's parents showed up. It's all because they're on
they're
the
all
other
there.
side of the glass having a drink. Um,
Sure.
yeah. So the next question I'm going to skip over because it's talking about, equipment.
Oh, yeah.
But the other one is what's your favorite hockey memory?
My favorite hockey memory.
I always play.
Um, so this one, my boys played 1 year for our high school team. People, you wouldn't believe it, but actually high school hockey in Virginia is huge. Like it
Hmm.
is huge. Pack the rink. I've never seen so many people in a rink. And so my sons, the one time, my one son was a freshman and the other one was a senior. And so they were the two goalies on the high school varsity team. And we made it all the way to the state's, championship game, which, nobody really expected us to do. And everybody expected us to get killed. But we ended up killing the other team. And again, I've never been in a rink so packed in my entire life.
Yeah.
And my husband and I were in the box, like doing score sheet and doing music. So like my husband and I are in the box. We're so stressed. Both of our boys are on the other side of the ice playing. Like our one son's like, pumping up the one that's in the net. Like it was just an awesome experience, and we won. And it was like we won states, and it was just like it was just a huge moment. And like,
That's awesome.
it was, I think for our entire family, that was just a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be one of those fun core memories.
It was huge.
Um, so this is always a fun one, and coming since you've been able to sit with the parents during games, you probably heard a few good ones. What's the best chirp you've heard uh, during a game?
That's tough. I mean, it's usually coming out of my husband's mouth. Um, and but that, like, you think he's like, oftentimes he's the quiet guy in the corner, like the typical goalie
Yeah,
dad, but then he's often the one where I'm like, "Stop it and go to the corner. Like, I need you to stop saying whatever." So I don't know that I could like pull it up, but he is the one that people look to like, "Oh no, I can't believe you just said that." So,
yeah.
we'll just leave it at that. How about that?
I, I, I
I don't
I
think I'll
still
repeat it.
the best one I've heard so far was actually from David Hutchins from Engel, and his son's goalie coach looked at him and said, "You must be really good at dodgeball." It's like, ooh, that gets you
Oh,
to the core. Um,
that's terrible.
so
Uh,
the next question is going to be a fun one since you brought up pre-gaming. What's the worst post-game drink?
oh, the worst post-game drink is probably your tears because you have some terrible, sad game that something terrible happened.
I I think that might even be the best response so far, just your tears from a loss.
The tears from
Um,
a child, I don't know, like, it's terrible.
yeah. Typically it's warm beer, but that one's better.
Yeah, I was
Uh,
gonna say this from a goalie mom.
yeah. Again, the next two are very like equipment related. So the last question is, what advice do you have for young goaltenders?
I mean, and this is hard for us to still even take this same advice, but it's a slow road. It's not a fast road, goaltending. Like, it's
Yeah, right,
slow and steady, and don't everyone's trying to I feel like everyone's trying now to, like, race forward and, get to these high points, and you forget to just enjoy the game and love the game, which that's such a simple concept, but it's not. And once you kind of get in the rat race of trying to get to the next level, I think people are stopping sort of enjoying the moment and the game and the team and sort of the community
right.
itself. So just slow and steady. It really is a slow and steady position in terms of trying to make it to the next level. And don't push it too fast. Like, I mean, okay, if you're on a U15, U16 team and it's not the best team, but you're getting a lot of shots. So just stay there and do that and take that experience, and don't try to, like, jump it and try to get onto the U18 team. Like, you see those sorts of things happen all the time. And, in every team and every experience for a goalie, you can learn something and learn something,
Yeah,
and learn what inside of yourself, what you can endure and what you can get through and, rise above. So just
yeah.
slow and steady.
It's funny when I talked to Brian DeCord of Boston University. He kind of said the same thing: is trust the process and don't try to
Mhm.
rush it. You
Yep.
know,
I think I
there's a
probably learned that
reason.
from him too, because my kids go to his camps every summer. So, but
Yeah,
he's got wise words.
yeah. He's awesome, and I love his Stop It Goaltending app because that has helped me
Mhm.
gain
So
more
good.
confidence in my beer league play. Because it's like, oh, we just got shelled again last night, but I probably should have let in those 5 goals.
Yeah, right,
you know,
right. Yeah, well, I mean, some of them are gonna go in, and that
yeah,
app is really fantastic, honestly. Like, it's such a good tool, and it also sort of takes the emotion out of it. So
yep,
if you can, even as a parent, like, we're never gonna tell our kid, like, it's not our job to tell them,
right,
give them advice, but if you can sit together and look at, what you've done on the app during the game, that's very, very helpful.
yeah.
So
No, I love it, and it, like you said, it's helped my confidence.
good.
Um,
I'm glad. I'm sure he'd be happy to hear that too.
Thank you for joining me on the podcast, spreading the great word of October Saves. I'm going to have all the links to the website and the social and all of
Thank
that in the show notes. But thank you, and let's hope it's another record year for donations, and we'll see what we can do to make it even better next year.
Well, thank you, and thank you for signing up and participating and counting your saves. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy to.
Thank you.
Thank you.